Hello and welcome back to the Wayward Strand stream as part of LudoNarraCon 2020. Um, Wayward Strand is a heartfelt narrative game that we're making together, which is about Casey, a teenage girl who explores an airborne hospital for the first time, uncovering its mysteries and exploring the lives of the patients and staff on board. I'll introduce myself first. My name is Jason Backer. My pronouns are he, him, and I do a bunch of things on Wayward Strand, including production, writing, programming, and design. I've got a couple of awesome team members with me that I'll let them introduce themselves as well.
Sure. I'm Goldie. I'm in charge of a lot of the art stuff on Wayward Strand. My pronouns are she and her. Yep, that's all you need to know.
I'm Maize. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm in charge of a lot of the audio stuff on Wayward Strand.
Cool. Yeah. Yep. So for starters, I'd love to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that each of us are on, and also whichever land you might be on. I pay my deep respects to the elders of these lands, communities, past, present, and future. Wayward Strand was made on the lands of the Wurundjeri and Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation and is set on Bunurong country. And we work in collaboration with the Bunurong Land Council. Sovereignty was never ceded. These lands always were and always will be Aboriginal land. Our team believes that we must engage in truth-telling so that we can join Australia's history with the more than 60,000 years of history that was here before us so that we can move together united. LudoNarraCon was organized by a fellow traveler in partnership with the awesome Steam team, and we want to give all of them a really big thanks for hosting Wayward Strand for LudoNarraCon 2020. It's an awesome event, and we're really happy to be part of it and chatting about Wayward Strand and all things narrative games. Throughout this week, there's a demo which you should be able to tab across and play right now if you want to. We should have like a gameplay on like a loop as well. And there's lots of other demos for great games and streams like this for those games and sales and panels and everything. It's a pretty awesome event.
It's so exciting.
Yeah. If you're interested in Wayward Strand, you can follow us on Twitter, add us to your Steam wish list. And also, if you wanted to chat with us, you can jump in our Discord. And we'll also be around on Steam throughout the week as well, on Steam chat and stuff alongside these streams. In this particular stream, we're going to do go into a couple of characters and kind of do what we're calling a bit of a deep dive into those characters. So kind of like their where they come from a little bit, their narrative and their background, and then also then jumping into their art style and how that has come together, and then doing a similar thing for their audio and their music and that kind of thing. We had over a dozen characters to pick from because the Wayward Strand has over a dozen characters in it. But we're pretty excited about the ones that we've picked, and we feel like they're kind of a good kind of cross section of the different some of the different types of characters that you'll meet when you play the game. It's exciting.
Gonna start off with our protagonist,
yes.
Casey.
So we should have some gameplay video going which kind of shows the character a little bit. Is it
Casey
which
way
is it?
That's the correct way.
Hey, yeah, it's cool. Awesome.
Yeah, that way.
Yeah, cool.
Casey has just come out of the elevator and Esther has come to greet her.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so Casey is our protagonist, our main character. She's 14 years old in 1978, which would mean she was born in
64.
64. Good maths, probably. Yes, I think that's right. And she's what can we say about Casey? She's pretty quiet. She's like not she spends a lot of time kind of like by herself, like in her kind of regular life before going up to the ship. And yeah, like the reason why she's going up is her mum is the head nurse up there. But it's a fairly new hospital, so Casey hasn't actually gone up to visit it.
Yeah, and
Um,
her mum wanted her up there to get to know the residents, all of the elderly patients on this ward, and get Casey out of her skin a bit and just out of her head a bit.
I think Casey's like a pretty typical country kid, but like is living in a very small town where there might not be that many other kids her age, and so going to school is where she gets to socialize with people her age, but it's the summer holidays and she's just been like riding her bike around and reading a lot, and but her mum, I think needs her to have a little bit more sort of structure and something to do other than maybe getting into some trouble down in the town, but also doesn't have a babysitter, or I think this, I don't know if it's a spoiler, but she doesn't have a dad at home, so
Yeah.
it just makes sense for Ruth to ask her up. But as far as we know about Casey, she's a bit reluctant to go up because she likes her freedom, and she's a good kid. She just wants to hang out and read and work on what she's working on. So
yeah,
Yeah.
which and that's often her like school newspaper, because Casey is a little bit of an amateur journalist, an amateur reporter. So even though she's a little bit reluctant to go up, she's kind of thinking like, well, at least maybe I'll write an article about the ship for my school newspaper. That's kind of what she was thinking when she goes up at the start.
Yeah, it gives her a bit of like an entrance into those conversations with people. She can be like, "Oh, can I interview you?" Or there's it's something to lean on.
Yeah.
So like based on the time period, we assume, or we think we've researched that her like local library and bookstore would have things like Enid Blyton Famous Five and Secret Seven, and like the Nancy Drew books and the Hardy Boys mysteries. And I would say that she's read most of the young adult fiction there, and is probably, with her writing, I would imagine she's half doing like proper journalism, investigative, and half like looking for mysteries. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
What's
what a great
suspicious?
journalist does,
What?
is
Yeah.
figure
Look
out
for
the
stories.
mystery.
find the truth.
Yeah.
Get the hook.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess like, yeah, I don't think we've figured out exactly how much we can, or it makes sense at this point to talk about what happens with the characters in the game, but maybe we'll kind of just do like a very kind of general thematic kind of thing. But that's also a bit tricky for Casey, because it is a little bit dependent on what the player does,
We should
more
talk
than
a
any
little
of the
bit
other
about
characters.
we could talk a little bit about the design of her in terms of like player agency as well.
Yeah, because I guess there's with a lot of the other characters, it was a lot more. It was a lot more like creating a character, I think, for a book or a movie or something, because you're just thinking a lot about them as what's an interesting story to tell, what's an interesting character to explore the life of. But with Casey, she has had to be designed to tie into, well, how much player agency does she have, or how much player agency do we want the player to have in this story, and um, that links into the reason why she's even a 14-year-old in the first place. Because
I love all of that, like how much, like I don't know if anybody watching has had any experiences in their lives where maybe a parent or their school has asked them to do something like just come and hang out here for an afternoon or for a couple of days, and especially something like a hospital, and it's very different in the 70s as it would be now. where I think now you would be told to sit in a particular spot and not move and not touch anything. In like rural 70s Australia, there's probably there would have been a lot more leniency for Casey to explore and to help out and to do some filing or to organize this or to help with this. But really, she doesn't have a lot of choice. Like, she's not going to be saving somebody's life. Like, she's not going to be giving an injection or giving medicine out.
Which is a bit different to a lot of other games where the player is often got a lot of control over what's happening in the whole game, and they're saving the world. They've got some big things happening. That's it. And how you ended up writing Casey changed with player feedback as well, and how much, not necessarily like agency, but how much of her own personality came through changed.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. Because I think like fairly early on, we were kind of, I think also because we were figuring out the voices of all of the different characters, it ended up being that in a conversation, Casey would often just be saying like, or okay, or not really engaging very much in the conversations. Whereas I think I think we just realized that the player would like to have some more like ways to lead the conversations in different directions, but then also I think we knew that Casey was deeper than what was being portrayed in the game, and we just had to be a bit more active in the writing process to get that across, to get across her character, because that's important for us as well, that she is not a silent protagonist, that
but that took us a little while to get to, right?
Totally.
She was more silent when we were, and we were much more invested in the player having their own like experience and their own reactions. So it's a bit of a balance of like, okay, this is Casey's reaction, but how different would the player feel? Like, we're having those thoughts as well.
Yeah, totally.
Let's go on. I'll just show you her like T-pose and some of the history of her character design. That we've got
I'll bring that
hooked up ready to go.
Yeah, a little bit of a behind the scenes look.
So Maize, if you can let me know what image is on the thingy.
Okay, so we have the lineup of all of the characters.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
This is just we'll just have this image up for a second. It just shows the three characters that we're going to be looking at today. Casey, Ida, and Esther. I think that's them in height order. And you can see the rest of the cast hidden from you for now. But so that's the character lineup. We'll show that quickly. And then if we move on to the next image, it should show Casey's updated,
doing her
updated T-pose. So we had a design for Casey, and we had her all modeled, and she was running some animations, and she was very, very, very skinny, even skinnier than this, because she's like a lanky kid. You can see in this image, I've got some images of Claudia Carvan in the corner, who was in a film that we have watched called High Tide, where she's like this young, again a teen, like rural Victorian coastline character who's always knocking about in wind cheaters and sweatshirts. And we thought that it was actually, I kind of like, I don't know, I grabbed something from that time and thought that was the right aesthetic for Case. So I gave her this big poofy top shape that yields a really nice silhouette and works for her. But if we move over to like the next image,
especially with the shorts, I think I really
with
like
the shorts too.
Yeah.
So she likes the ocean, Casey, and I think she is a bit of a beach bum. Would happily, like, it's one of those kids that just doesn't seem to get cold,
Fully. I definitely had those growing up. I'm not one. I get cold very easily.
I was lucky to grow up on the beach, or near the beach a lot, and so you've always kind of got this layer of sand on your knees and ankles anyway, so it keeps you warm, I'm sure. But that's another vibe of Casey. So if we
Yeah.
move on to the next image, you can
Yep.
see, I'll just quickly show you the OG Casey, who
Yeah.
you can see what I mean by a bit too skinny. She's sort of like literally a beanpole.
And this
But,
like was
yeah.
Casey for like a couple of years or so
Yeah.
before the redesign. So it's
I think
yeah.
what happened for me visually was I think she looked good like this and really cute, and read well on the screen and was very expressive. But as I was designing all of the other characters, especially some of the older characters, and they were kind of like bigger and bulkier and just had a little bit more oomph to them, she really started to just compare badly. So I needed to bulk her up, and the best way to do that was by putting her in that big jumper and kind of inverting a triangle shape with her.
Yeah,
Very,
she was
very
a bit inverted.
Yeah.
That's
very,
funny.
very clever way to solve that
Yeah.
issue, by the way.
Yeah, I'm very much happier with her. So yeah, the next image is just
Just on this one, I love how you put all of her expressions. Is that
Yeah.
something that you do in your flow? Like,
often you'll see, like in the other streams that we have coming up, we're going to look at Ida and we're going to look at Esther, and I think I don't have the expressions in theirs, but on a lot of the other characters I do. It depends. Like sometimes you design a character and it's like, I know what they look like, I know what their expressions are like, and as art director, I probably should do them because I've got to communicate that, but this is my first time doing this. So yeah, I'm happy. I think I will add them because they are really fun to look at,
yeah.
and really helpful, especially as we move, like going ahead, we're going to be looking a lot more at like facial animation soon, and so having them is going to be just really handy. So I do have them drawn, but not in the same way that I have them drawn on this like 2016 T-pose and character guide. But yeah,
they are lovely, and they really they're so like they kind of spur your imagination, because in each one I look at them and then I'm like, oh, what's the scene where Casey goes ew, and it's like,
Yeah,
oh yeah,
that's my favorite
I start
one
to
too.
think
I
up,
was like,
yeah, I start to think up yeah, totally.
You can imagine Ted showing her something kind of gross.
Yeah. There's I think there's like that just, I guess, goes into probably a bit of a larger thing of just I think we all kind of riff off of what each other make in that way, because Goldie's often like drawing like these amazing like little scenes or little things that'll then give ideas for like writing, and then similarly Maize with like the music for the characters, it feels so expressive. I don't know, it's really cool.
Thanks, Jace. Last image, just before we move on to talking, I'd love to hear Maize's music stuff for Casey. Just shows Ida and Casey like in a still from the trailer, and the same thing with the background in what you were saying there, Jace, with like little moments for expression and expressiveness, where I kind of like sometimes come up with a little object, and that can like inspire a whole little conversation track that gets written. And anyway, you can see Casey and Ida look a lot more balanced, and a lot more balanced together than Beanpole Casey did. And texture stuff is still trying to land somewhere that's a little bit watercolory, but very digital. But I'll cover that again in a different character cover talk thing. Yeah, cool.
All right. So for the music, Casey's interesting because, so for the other characters, their room is like where their personality really shines, and it's where their music comes out the most. But Casey, it's the hallways, and that sounds sort of weird, but it's like that's where on screen you're just Casey, and it's often where the player is like navigating to different areas. So that's where Casey's music shines the most. And I wrote this track really early on, and it's the one in the trailer as well, and it's the one that opens the game. And it's the one that basically started setting the tone for the rest of the soundtrack. And Jason specifically really fell in love with this one, and that has really solidified it for me as well. And, you know, it's quite different from what the soundtrack was right at the start, which was a bit more piano and cello and things like that. Bringing it more down to earth with my first instrument, guitar. And I'll just play a little bit. I'm not sure if either of you will be able to hear this, but I will turn it up and try.
Just imagine it.
Yeah.
I can hear.
Yeah.
You know it.
Yeah.
So it still has the piano in there, but it's much more delicate. And it's actually two guitars that really shine properly through here.
Let's listen.
So what's interesting about this melody is that it's being doubled, so both the guitar and the piano are playing it at once. And when the guitar really comes in is when you get like a little pull-off note or something, which is, for me, it's a little bit like, that's Casey walking and how she's, you know, she might skip every now and then. It's sort of how teenagers awkwardly walk, like they're still learning sometimes. But this... Yeah, it's also just really trying to set the pace of the game in that moment.
The way I first sort of thought of describing it when I first heard it was that it's a very wandering kind of piece. It doesn't seem to have any destination. It's not rushing towards anything. It's just wandering, and that is a real Wayward Strand vibe.
Totally.
Yeah, and it's what we tried to get Casey to be doing as well was just sort of like figuring out her vibe. And then we have, I'll just show one other, which is like a little bit more active, and it's what's in the cafeteria for her.
Cafeteria is sort of a hub, like where they all come and talk together sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Aw, thanks, Jace. And this is just one guitar. I experimented a bit with putting a melody over it and stuff. And I think there is another version somewhere that does have a melody on top. But just having that rhythm. And I think they're the two main tracks that are Casey in the current demo.
Yeah. I kind of just, as soon as I heard them both, I was just like, oh, I just want to sit down for half an hour and just talk with you about like making them and like all of the little decisions and things. But we've got two more characters to get through, I guess. So we should.
You know what? Like, we've been talking as we've been like setting up all of this streaming stuff for the first time and thinking that we would love to do more streams. So hopefully, Maize, we can get in and do an audio stream that's longer, because it's beautiful work.
Yeah,
it's
totally
funny, like, you going through all of those pieces of paper that you were pulling out earlier from all of your different sketches. I have the same thing. It's just all of these tracks are all like sort of scattered around my computer and notes and things. It's
just doing like an evolution of Casey's music would be incredible. Yeah,
man, there's been some interesting demos that have been shot down or iterated on. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, we might wrap this one up. So we're going to have a little break, and then we'll be coming back with the next character.
Add us to your wish list.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Bye.